You've probably seen my guest, S. Robert Morgan, on the hit TV show The Wire or in the Marvel Universe series Luke Cage. But what you didn't know about him is that he's the founder and artistic director of the Essential Theater in Washington, D.C. Its mission is to use theater as a vehicle to express the African American experience and to use it to educate youths about the realities outside of theater. For example, teaching kids in DC's economically depressed areas about how to manage their own finances and how to achieve positive levels of self-esteem. S. Robert uses the power of storytelling to ignite the imaginations of young people, and he has proven that drama can even be used as a form of psychotherapy. Yeah, this conversation ran very deep. And I haven't even gotten to the part about how he directs his own productions while being sight impaired. Seriously, are you ready to be blown away? Let's just get right into it and say hello to S. Robert. S. Robert, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for being here. Maybe we can start by you just telling me a little bit about Essential Theater and its background. It's been in existence for quite a while, since 1989. Tell me about its mission and how you are connected with your community in Washington, D.C.
Well, the Essential Theater is a nonprofit professional theater that's dedicated but not limited to producing theater reflective of the African American experience. And so as we do that, we want to celebrate the rich, diverse cultural landscape in America through the African American lens. And so in so doing, we have a new play reading series that feeds that, where we develop plays for a 3-year period. And at the end of that 3-year period, we have the right of first refusal to produce the world premiere of that play. We just finished, say back in 2018, we produced the world premiere of People for Whom the World Spins and Turns by James J. Shaw, MD. And so we also have, the Young Audiences program, and we get some of our Young Audiences pieces from our new play development program. And incidentally, we're soliciting will be soliciting for Young Audiences pieces, new pieces, 2-3 character pieces, perhaps with music. So we'll be looking for that, for Young Audiences. And we also have one of our most important programs, our Women's Works program, because our target demographic is women 25 through 64. And so those are the programs, the mission critical programs that make up the company's mission and what guides the company.
Interesting. You just mentioned that your target demographic is women of a certain age group. So talk a little bit about that. How did that come to be, that ended up being your target market?
That's one of the things that used to just hang me, is the marketing piece, because it's a bit of a science, marketing is. Everybody would always say, and we even had a marketing director when we initially started. We weren't quite there yet, but we did have someone who could concentrate on marketing and at least tell us. And he would always say, well, what's your audience? Who is your audience? And I would always say, everybody is our audience. And so, I thought about that over the years. In any society, who generally makes the decisions in households across the world? And it's women. Women are going to do one of 2 or 3 things. They're going to come and they're going to go back and talk about it if they like it. And they're either when they come, they're going to either bring someone with them or attract people to it. If men see a bunch of women, they'll come just to want to be in the room.
Sure.
And so that was the guide for that. And women will support. They're less of a fickle audience. They're nurturers by nature, and so they are a dedicated audience.
Okay, got it. Let's take it back a little bit. Let's talk about before pandemic. Tell me about the programs that you had ongoing, and then we can back up into kind of where you're at today. So go ahead.
Well, prior to the pandemic, we were starting to experience a growth pattern because despite our 32-year existence, we're nowhere near where I hoped we would be right now. And so, you know, my objective has always been bricks, mortar, and endowment, you know, but like most things, it doesn't play out in real life like it plays out in your head.
Sure.
So, but we were experiencing a growth pattern. For a number of years, had moved over into Northwest DC. We were sharing back office space that was offered from DC Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy for a number of years. That allowed us to do some things administratively that we would not otherwise have had the latitude to do, because the rent there was $1 a year, you know, and so we were able to experience some growth spurts as a result of that. You know, we were starting to put our tentacles back into the community, or even deeper into the community, because we always had our young audiences programs there and our children's program in public schools. We always had that. Our new play development program was continuing, you know, in a consistent pattern, because it is, despite any other program, you know, whether it worked or not, the new play reading series continued regardless, because, you know, it's kind of scrappy. It's new plays, you're doing table reads, you're doing workshops in rooms, nuts and bolts sessions, you know, doing a lot of navel gazing, if you will. And so you don't always need an audience for that. So it is one of the programs that continued. So so pre-pandemic, that is what we were doing. And so when the pandemic hit, there was this shift that had to be done to a virtual space, because oddly enough, it happened at a point where we were starting to experience a growth in funding. And so we had the funds, but we were now prevented by law, essentially, from being able to gather in a single space with other people. And we all know that in theater or any kind of entertainment industry, you know, your survival is predicated upon ticket sales, individual ticket sales, you know, and then concessions or whatever else it is you sell. And so we decided that we could reasonably shift to a virtual space with some programming, because we record everything, because we need them for work samples to apply for grants. We started to rebroadcast that stuff, and to just keep people in the mindset of going to theater or supporting theater, we offered those items online as either free or pay what you can.
Okay, and how's that been going?
It's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. And I think everyone will probably say at the end of this that it's a little bit more difficult to move audiences into a virtual space, especially when you're trying to program it at particular times, and even on demand, because we've done some things on demand. Well, you can just pay whatever you can for it, and you can watch it whenever you feel like it during this span of time. And so, you know, it's been a kind of lukewarm response, but we're continuing to work in that, because at the end of the day, I think it's about marketing as well. You know, I think this is the virtual space is a platform. I think you can do good and do well. And by the term, using the term well, I mean, you know, still keep your name out there as a viable business.
Sure, absolutely. The programs that you were running, these were plugged into school curriculums, correct?
Yes, they were. Prior to the pandemic, we did have some in-school experiences that we were doing, yes.
Okay, so yeah, tell me about that. The young audiences performances, what does that mean? Does that mean the kids are participating in the production? Are they developing the production? How does that work?
No, the young audiences performances are those one-off performances that generally concentrate on some sort of interdisciplinary learning piece. For instance, for younger kids that are like 3 to 8 or 9, we're doing, you know, how to be kind to each other, cyberbullying, Stranger Danger, things like that. When we got into, and we just ventured into doing performances for middle school. And for the middle school students, we dealt with issues like financial literacy. When there was the mentioning of placing the image of Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, we thought, well, this is an excellent time to teach financial literacy. And so we partnered with a bank here in Washington, D.C. called the Industrial Bank of Washington, D.C. And we brought them in to do financial literacy training, to talk about saving and investing and the benefit of compound interest over the long term, and how that can potentially create wealth management, or stimulate wealth management. So those are the kinds of things that we started to talk about. And so as an added benefit to that program, we would do door prize drawings, and the winners would receive certificates to start bank accounts at the Industrial Bank of Washington. And so I'm happy to say that as of today, and this was started back in 2017, 100% of the students who started bank accounts still have those bank accounts.
Wow.
Maintaining those bank accounts. And so this is done in what is considered, when you look at the metrics, as an economically depressed area. Okay? So that's a very important tool for them. And one of the other things that we do to deepen the interdisciplinary learning piece is that we sit down with the mathematic instructors and try to urge them to start to braid this topic of compound interest over the long term into your classroom instruction. And the instructors are very enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
To see how that works, because oftentimes they don't have that opportunity. Now, I don't mean that they don't have an opportunity to be creative, because all educators everywhere are forced to be creative, especially in this environment, but normally because they're so poorly funded.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, I'm just kind of letting that sink in. I don't have a follow-up question to that. I'm going through my notes.
That's okay. Let me know if I'm getting too deep.
No, it's great. You know what I'll probably do? It's all good. Because for right now, for me, I'm just kind of, like I said, I'm just learning. Mm-hmm. I'm just hearing, observing. And what I'll probably do is go back and re-record my own parts of this interview and set up the questions a little bit better.
I understand.
You're a professional actor, you know. Right. So, well, actually, while we're on that topic, do you mind if I just touch on that? It's kind of hard to ignore your acting career. You were on The Wire for like 5 or 6 seasons, right?
Yes.
And then can you talk about the Marvel comic strip?
Well, that depends upon what you want to know. I was there.
Yeah.
And as one of my other Marvel alums, Anthony Mackie, I saw him on a TV show, and he said, I don't know if I could even say I was there, if I worked there.
Right.
So, but yes, I did that, and it was an experience.
Okay, come on. An experience. Tell me something a little more.
Well, you know, it was one of those things. Let me say this. I can't tell you that I've ever read a comic book in my life. You know, it was just not one of those things that I was ever attracted to. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, as a kid, I remember this rumor. There were a couple of rumors. What do you call those things where people say if you step on a crack, it breaks your mama's back?
Oh, yeah, like a superstition.
Superstitions, yes. So they used to say, well, you know, if you read comic books, that'll make you have nightmares or something. You know what I mean? So I stayed away from comic books.
Oh.
You know, and so I've never really read a comic book, but I thought it was fascinating. You know, they were taking these comic books and making real life stories about them, you know, creating this episodic TV around this comic strip. One of our board members, you know, who's a PhD, he's a professor of mathematics, you know, high-end math. And he has stacks and stacks and stacks of comic books. It's unbelievable. And he still reads them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I've never really gotten into.
Okay, you know what you just reminded me of? In the last few days, I read this article from, I think he was a sociologist. Basically, this person's hypothesis and kind of warning is that our society in this time in America that we're living in, people have lost direction. They've kind of lost the message and the impetus for how to live a meaningful life. And it's been replaced by basically consumerism. This is because we, as a culture, as a society, have lost that notion of myth. Myth being the underlying story to a society, a culture, a people, and where we are going and what's our purpose. Now, why I find that interesting, and how I'm tying it to what you just mentioned about Marvel Comics. When I was growing up, I did read comics, and that's where it all began for me. I mean, the interest in storytelling. Really, later on, it evolved into an interest into art, into poetry, into symbolism. I'll even dare to say, even spirituality. What is your take on all that?
I think he is spot on. First of all, let me say I'm glad that there's a huge market to which the comics appeal, because I think we have to be dedicated to engaging individuals, and particularly youth, in any way that we can to pull them in. But I think consumerism has contributed to the degradation, if you will, the denigration of the attention span, because we don't want to read. I think, again, the comics facilitate, that way. You're reading, and it's igniting your imagination. I've had student volunteers, and they will sit at a 3x6 table across from each other, and they will text each other. And I've had to tell them time after time again, would you put those devices down and talk to each other? And the strange thing about that is it sort of transfers to the written work that they tend to do. I've told students several times, student volunteers, writing a letter is not like a text message. You can't, we've gotten to this thing where everybody is speaking in acronyms, impaired, PED, and all of these other things. And so we're sort of getting lazier, if you will. So I think he's spot on. I mean, even some of the high school students that I have, they never read a novel. And in school now they're reading passages because they said, well, reading novels just, that's just too much for the students. Well, what are we preparing them for?
Yeah, that is a good question. What are we preparing them for? So now we can, I think, tie this back to the mission of Essential Theater. Now tell me how you think your program, your mission, I won't say fills the gap, but at least it will give them an option, open at least a window to something else.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. We strive to feed into the positive side of that narrative, if you will, because, students have to read. Oftentimes they just want to be on stage.
Sure.
Oh, they want to be on stage, and they don't realize how challenging it is, that you have to work on all of these things, and it is interdisciplinary. You must read, if you're going to be on the speaking stage, you have to articulate and enunciate words. You have to read. There is just no way around it. There is no way around it in theater. And even in film, and I tell students all the time, if you're going to act, you have to be 99.9% aware of what's going on around you all the time. Because these same characters in plays, I don't care, from Shakespeare to Wilson, you see these people every day. These are regular, everyday people. It's just that when Shakespeare wrote, he wrote in the common language of the time, as did August Wilson. So there is no real big difference other than the way the sentences are structured. But again, it's the language of the day. How now? What's up?
Right.
So that's what it is. There's a lot to dig through to get to that, but I think it's there, and I see glimmers of hope all of the time.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. So can we talk a little bit about This is a new term for me, psychodrama. Can you explain to me what that means?
Psychodrama deals with redirecting. It's really art therapy, working out things through art. I think psychiatrists do it all the time with role playing. It happens that way. It can happen just through visual art, just through sitting a child down and say, here, draw a picture for me. And a lot can come out, in that. So that's basically what that is in a nutshell.
I want to touch on this just a little bit. I don't want to make an issue about it. I mean, I want to put the right light around it. Obviously, you're sight impaired. And as I'm talking to you, I'm really kind of impressed with how you're able to run this kind of an organization and the kinds of programs you've developed. I kind of need to hear, what are your personal challenges and how do you deal with them?
People ask me that all the time. And one of the things that I get all the time, especially when I direct, they always ask me, well, what do the actors think? And I've never asked actors that. It's never a question that comes up because we're moving so fast. But yes, the short answer is no, I do not do it all myself. There's just no way that I can do it all myself. Can I do each thing? Yes, but no, there's no way in the world that I would even attempt that. It's the same as any other artistic director. I just can't see what I'm doing, but I've been doing it for so long until I know. It's almost like kinesthetic senses. You know exactly where it is without seeing it. And people do this all the time. I mean, when you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you don't turn all the lights on. You know where the bathroom is. You know where the commode is. Now, every now and then, you might hit your foot on the door or the wall or something like that, or the ease of the door. But by and large, you know where it is in the dark. So it's the same thing.
Sure. But, I'm still a little bit perplexed by this because I know that you direct. So you must have some help from your staff, and there must be some way that you divide, well, not only responsibilities, but you probably need a certain type of feedback from people to know that your vision is being executed in the right way.
Well, now I will tell you that some of the artisans with whom I work and that, bring in to work are superb. So it's really about getting the right people with experience to be able to give you what it is you need.
So what do you have planned for the coming year?
Well, we're actually planning that. Now I've just submitted our budget to the board of directors or board of trustees, as they are called now. We are planning our first production of the fiscal year, which begins in July, but this is a September, October production where we're doing a piece about Sugar Ray Robinson, the boxer. We'll do that, and then we'll have a young audience's performance online, sing along with Mr. Rudy. That's for younger children. That's like 3 to 6 or 7. And then we plan on doing something in celebration of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, national holiday in January. And so beyond that, we've not planned anything else in the virtual space. And if the restrictions are lifted in the District of Columbia, we will do the production that we abandoned plans for in 2020. And that was a piece called From the Mississippi Delta. So those are the plans for the next year. And of course, if anybody wants to find out more about that or how that's sort of developing, they can visit our website at theessentialtheater.org. And of course, our email contact is info at theessentialtheater.org.
Okay, fantastic. S. Robert, thanks again for your time today. It was great to hear everything that you're doing. Really, I had a wonderful time talking to you, and I'll look forward to seeing how these new projects develop in 2021.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having us. We're honored.
All right, great. Have a good one.
Be safe. You too.
My name is Steve. And I am a recovering...
Have a fucking good day yourself. And if you're wondering why I didn't tip you, just take a look in the mirror and see how much of an ass you are. God, that taxi driver was irate with me the entire ride over. And when he found out where he was dropping me off, he went ballistic. Sorry, am I interrupting?
You're late.
I just signed a multi-million-dollar contract with my law firm. I had a few more important things to attend to.
Are you sure you're at the right place then?
My company asked me to come here more as a formality than anything else, just so they could check off another box on their checklist.
No, stop! You can't do this! Don't do this to me!
Looks like I'm not the only one who forgot to set my alarm. You guys got any security around here?
You can't do this! You can't just dump me here!
Haley, right?
Let's see the show.
No, don't do this, Dad! You can't make me stay! If this is the best you can do, you've got no right calling yourself my dad!
Look, you're here now, so let's just...
No, look, I'm 21, I know the rules. You can't make me stay! You can't force me to stay here against my will!
No, but if you were totally strung out on drugs and incapable of making your own decisions, you certainly could.
Say that you take insulin, but they don't allow needles in this program.
I'm a type 2 diabetic. Type 2 diabetics only need to take oral medications.
But you distinctly said that you take insulin, so now you're just changing your story.
I'm a type 2 diabetic who at one point needed to take insulin, but now that my blood sugar is under control, I only need to take oral medication.
I'm not convinced.
Do you want me to show them to you?
I want to watch you take them.
What are you? Some undercover journalist? I bet you are. You're probably planning all the drugs just so you'll have a story to sell.
Why are you so easily provoked?
Because you're doing the provoking.
Oh, maybe you're high on cocaine or amphetamines. They'll do that to you.
You little animal.
Oh, maybe it was PCP you last used.
Jesus, what's wrong? My chest is pounding.
Cocaine will do that to you.
My father had a heart attack when he was 45. Get me to the ER.
Steve, get in here! You better do a drug test. I don't care what he says. Steve, get in here, quick!
What's going on? He grabbed the chest and fell to the ground. Use it.
That's what we want to know.
Call 911. We have to get him to the hospital.